It is the Wishbone. It is from left to right on my computer screen. G-Rizen, a.k.a. G-Rizen. Uncle T, Terry Niehaus. And one JT Hayes, who I can never remember what JT stands for, but I'm pretty sure it's like Jonathan Timmy or something like that. Hello and good afternoon, gentlemen. Just before we came on, Uncle T was hitting on JT, saying how sexy he looked. So I will start with you, JT Hayes. What the hell does your name stand for, and how are you?
Yeah, it's Josiah Tiberius.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yeah, and it's funny because JT Hayes, just call me JT. Just call me JT. There's no need to complicate this. I mean, I know because when we started this, like there's an evolution, right? You start with your screen name, and then you kind of shorten things. And what's your Twitter? Just call me JT. I don't need to be called by screen names or Twitter names. Just JT is fine. But it's good to see you.
Torben.
Josiah Tiberius, please, is my preference. Tib for short.
What is it really?
I'm not going to tell you what it is really.
Okay.
That's what it is. That's what I like to be called. We live in a world now where you can be called anything you want.
Yes.
And that's what I would like to be called.
How about Sally? Can I call you Sally?
You could call me. Well, if I wanted to be called Sally, then that would be. Call me. But if not, then it's offensive and hurtful, and I cry, and there's all sorts of bad outcomes for you, Holden.
Would that make you binary? What is that? Is that binary?
So there's many things. I try to talk about things that I understand, right? So you're asking me questions that I don't understand the answers to.
Me too.
But what I do know is if they want to be called something, then we are going to respect that and love that, and it's good. But I want to say, we missed you last week. I don't know if the subscribers or viewers missed you as much as we did.
Yeah.
But I hope you had a good break.
Was it a debacle? It had to have been fun. You're hanging out with your boys.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that says a lot right there. Yeah, it was a wonderful time in Legoland. What can I tell you? Uncle T is here today. So many things to discuss with Uncle T. Uncle T, though, has seen all of the DraftKings commercials with his nephew, BigT. The latest teaser trailer I've seen is a windmill. Can you give us a little bit of insight to a future commercial that nobody else has had privy to quite yet?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, take a step back, Holden. Very, very good to have you back.
Thank you.
You know, we did miss you last week, but we did have a good show as well. We had a nice show. G-Rizen did a great job hosting. JT and I, neither one, I don't think we would have executed it as good as G-Rizen did. So we did have a good show, but we did miss you. So it's good to have you back. No, I've not seen the commercials. I'm saying I've seen, all the clips and stuff that they did and the footage that they took here. I don't know how they're going to cut it up into stuff. I've not actually seen the DraftKings thing. I don't even think Big T's seen them. So, but they are going to be kind of fun. I think as they come out, they're going to have to start coming out with these things pretty rapid fire, right? G-Rizen, when is the live final?
The 19th.
Okay, so these next few weeks they're going to be jamming in, I think, a lot of content as far as the stuff that they've recorded. So there's going to be some good stuff out there. I know you guys saw probably the 20-second commercial or clip, if you will, on Big T in his backyard talking to the goats. That was kind of neat. There was a lot more to that, but I think they just spliced it into about 15 seconds. No, so that's it on that. But, as far as JT and his real name and such, it's a damn good thing because JT is evidently the guy that people like to give a hard time to about mispronouncing names. So it's interesting that he likes to go by JT, which I'm happy about too, because I didn't want to have to pronounce that either. And then him give me a hard time about mispronouncing names. So we'll definitely stick with JT. And no, it's good to be back on here and talk. It's crazy. It's week 13, isn't it? Right? Week 13. We look up and we're almost, in the last, quarter of the NFL season. But we'll get into that, in about a half hour.
Who knows? We'll get into the slate, week 13 coming up in a moment. But first, G-Rizen, notorious Lions fan, notorious. Oh, actually, I don't know if you're a Michigan State or a Michigan fan. You act like you're a Michigan fan, but You haven't talked much about it before today. And then Javi Baez in the background. So what do we got here, Mr. G-Rizen? Lots going on with you there in one of the most overrated states in America.
Yeah, I mean, we're not overrated in football. We're number 2. So that is a good thing. I mean, as a Michigan fan, I was fully invested emotionally into that game at noon. That was awesome. It was really fun to watch, exciting atmosphere. I mean, it was exciting football game, and there was 10 years of pent-up anger that I had to release, which finally got to do so. So I was very glad to do that. Now, being a Lions fan, Holden, we're used to this shit. I mean, we don't expect much. So, I mean, there's really no skin there. But we weren't really expecting to beat Ohio State as we did. But that was really fun. And the Javi Baez talk, obviously, we signed him today here in Detroit with the Tigers. Got a little bit of a discount, I believe, 6 years, $160, I think. I mean, damn, I think Carlos Correa, after that Corey Seager contract, he might get $400 million even possibly. So I don't really think that the Tigers wanted to choke themselves with a $400 million contract for a guy that really hasn't stayed healthy throughout his career. So interesting, very interesting. They got biased today. I thought that was interesting.
Is there anything worse than the 10-year deal? I know we're all baseball guys on here. I know, Holden, you follow baseball, not maybe your favorite sport, but the rest of us, I think, we really follow it pretty closely. These contracts are just crazy.
What kind of bullshit is that? We follow it I follow it very closely. It's my job.
I didn't mean it like that. Now, don't. I didn't mean it like that, Holden. I thought football was your favorite sport.
It is. Football is my favorite. Right. Is baseball all 3 of your favorite sports?
Well, I don't know if it's these 2. I know it's mine. Golf and baseball definitely on mine.
BigT?
Yeah, I mean, what do you mean?
Why are we doing a football podcast then? We got baseball guys over here.
So the difference between like where baseball sits is just above football, right? So it's real close. And then comes the NBA, because I totally ignored the NBA from like 1996 until 2016 when I started playing DFS. So NBA is a deep third for me.
Yeah, so I didn't mean any disrespect, Holden, on that one. I'll give you a hard time when I'm ready, but that really wasn't me trying to poke
so go on.
No, it baffles me how these teams just throw money at guys for like 10-year deals. And I'm hearing like Castellanos is holding out for like 7 or maybe an 8-year deal. And how old is he? Like, I'm a huge Castellanos guy. I wish he would have stayed here in Cincinnati for sure. Great guy, good player, was good in the community, good in the clubhouse. But can you imagine paying even Castellanos right now an 8-year deal? I couldn't imagine. But again, if these guys are going to get it, more power to them.
There's just a lot of bad contracts. You know what else I think is interesting? The Scherzer deal going to the Mets, which ostensibly is going to blow up in their faces because they're the Mets and bad things happen to them. He looked a little gassed toward the end of last year. And I'm starting to wonder. Now, he looked great when he went over to the Dodgers. I've been around this guy a lot of his career, and I'd never seen anything like I saw down the stretch where his arm it looked exhausted. It's the first time I've ever seen that guy look exhausted. He'll have a full off season, but 3 years, not a monster investment time-wise. But if he and DeGrom stay healthy, World Series contender, no question. But if Scherzer is now not the guy he was and DeGrom continues to miss starts, then they just pissed away $120-30 million or whatever it was. It was a good sign. I mean, honestly, they needed that. And I think the Mets have had a great offseason. But that, to me, is a fascinating one. The Mets, probably number one. And I'm here in Denver. They're like, oh, Chris Bryant. They want to get Chris Bryant. Why? Why does Chris Bryant want to come here? Are they going to pay him the most money? Is that why? Why would you want to play in Denver right now? This place it's one of the worst teams in baseball. If not the worst, just a completely dysfunctional organization right now. And it's unfortunate, but I don't know if someone's just throwing that out there, but why would Chris Bryant want to come to a team where there's no chance of winning in the next 3 years?
I mean, I think if they're going to spend the money, but here is the larger point about the market and the signings that you've seen this week. Signings made by the Mets and the Rangers. No one's accusing the Mets or the Rangers or sorry, G-Rizen, even the Tigers, of being the sharpest organizations out there. Right?
That's true.
There's going to be a lockout here in, Thursday, and the labor agreements could change. So I think the players are sharp here for taking the money they're being offered, thinking no one was going to pay Max Scherzer that. No one was going to give him that contract. No one was going to give Starling Marte that kind of money. I don't think anyone was going to pay Eduardo Escobar $20 million over 2 years. I don't think many people were interested in paying Javi Baez that kind of money. And what the Rangers did, interesting, because I like Seager, but you talk about injury history, he was going to command the money. I don't know if Semien was so much, but you have these franchises that have been really bad and are, in the case of the Mets, let's leave them out. In the case of the Rangers and the Tigers, building very good pieces, good farm pieces that have come up. Our guy Adolis Garcia last year for Texas. I love what the Tigers have done with their pitching staff. And the Mets, it's just a byproduct of having an owner with deep pockets who wanted to get away from what was his just a terrible first season under his leadership. Just everything that could go wrong did go wrong. You sign these guys that are 33 years and up for a total of $500 million, committing like 15 years to them. You're absolutely right. This isn't going to work out well because now, you have these other pieces that are in this organization. You talk about DeGrom. DeGrom didn't pitch after the All-Star break. That doesn't seem to me like an injury that's going to heal on its own. Scherzer, I think, will be fine. I think part of the issue is that as these pitchers get older, there is some sense to maybe not letting them throw 120 pitches. But I think that these teams, this is going to have the opposite result on these teams. It's going to actually prevent them from getting to where they want to go more quickly. Be very surprised to see these moves for the Mets work out. Rangers a little bit more hope because I think they have a solid farm system. And same thing with the Baez signing with the Tigers. If they think Baez is a guy who can maybe mentor some of these young players, though he didn't show really good judgment in New York with the whole thumbs down thing to the fans. Detroit's a different market. He won't be under the same pressure. But I think this Mets thing is going to be a beautiful disaster.
Ooh, beautiful disaster, he says, Uncle T. Beautiful disaster.
I agree almost the entire thing. What JT just said, he said it beautifully. I agree 100%. I think the signing G-Rizen in Detroit that it got overshadowed was my boy Tucker Barnhart. Going to Detroit a couple weeks ago. I'm obviously saying it tongue in cheek. He could definitely help them a little bit. He's a really good defensive catcher. Obviously struggles a little bit with the bat, but I kind of like that signing. A little sneaky signing there for the Tigers. What do you guys think about that signing and also about the Baez signing?
G-Rizen.
The Tucker Barnhart signing, he was just replacing you because you got hurt down here. So, you couldn't looks like next year Jake Rogers isn't coming back. So they were just looking for somebody to fill in for him. And, a guy that hits he's got a little bit of pop. I don't mind Tucker Barnhart at all. And when you guys are mentioning these injuries with pitching, I think we kind of got to remember that the year before we only had a 60-game season. So then all of a sudden their arms were just dead for a while. And then, they jump into a spring training. They didn't even have spring training really the year before. I just think they're all that rhythm, everything was off. I think as the pitchers went into the season, longer they went into the season, I think they were affected by not pitching the year before. So after having this season coming into their full camp, I think these pitchers will be able to go longer. But I think you guys are right. I think you're going to start seeing 90 pitches. I think it's going to be norm here in baseball in the next few years that these pitchers are not going to start going through the lineups 3 times. I think you're going to see after 2 times through the lineup, I think these pitchers are going to be done. And then you're going to see, 1 or 2 guys burn through the next few innings and it's going to be a game. But really interesting. But I did have a question today I talked to a few people about. What do you guys feel about them having a rule like they do in football where they need to ban the shift, have at least 2 defensive players on the infield on both sides of second base? So I think that that would help baseball because me as a baseball fan, I'm not really a fan of the shift at all. So I think that would really help baseball. But, I think that COVID season still is affecting all these baseball players just because of the time they're off.
Uncle T, do you think Big T made it 5 minutes into the show today?
Well, it's interesting because before I was going to answer this question from G-Rizen by saying, I hope Big T has tuned us out by this time, because my answer to this, he will not like, because I'm on G-Rizen's side, and it might, but I mean, I'm on G-Rizen's side. I don't like the fact that you can do that. And you can say it's more of a, going back, maybe being a baseball guy through and through years ago, old school, however you want to word it. I agree with him. I think it has kind of ruined a little bit about how the game's played a little bit. I'm with G here. I'm hoping JT's on our side too, but I'm going to take the side of G-Rizen here. I think they should institute some type of a rule that you can't do it.
The shift, I think, first of all, you take away the shift because you're looking to promote offense, right? You're disappointed that your left-handed batters that can only pull the ball are going to pull the ball into the guys on the right side of the field. Same thing with righties. What the shift has done is not so much – the reason why it's altered the game is because it's shown the complete and absolute dullness of Major League Baseball managers, that we can't teach anyone to go to the opposite field. That we get – and by the way, they're putting the shift on these left-handed batters, and they're still throwing them outside fastballs. So I think you see a handful of guys bunt. You see, if you could eliminate the shift as a manager by just simply saying, okay, we're going to bunt to the open field every single time, and we're going to put more runners on base, and we're going to stress your regular defense. But there's a complete dullness when it comes to that. So I don't think you should eliminate it. I think if it's an advantage. If you're going to play against a team that refuses to develop its players to take the advantages that are given to them, then by all means, you should have it.
So let me ask you guys this. We're all old, so we grew up. 80s baseball to me was my favorite baseball. 4-3 was a high-scoring game, and I like a nice 2-1 Donnybrook, whatever we see there. Does the game from the 1980s even get anybody watching these days? Because let's face it, the viewership is down. I still think baseball is the second most popular sport in this country, but the NBA has been charging for a while, man. It really has. And I'm concerned. Like, baseball in 20 years from now, we'll just be the old people that are going to the ballpark. People go for fun. No one's watching it on TV. No one's getting interested in it. With the game 30 years ago, would it be able to sell in 2021?
No, but I don't know that. I think that's more of a product of how the game is run. One of the things that concerns me about this lockout here is, are they making the same mistake that they made, whatever it was, 25 years ago, where no one in this environment in the United States right now is going to be able to understand why these guys can't agree. So if this lockout happens to delay spring training by any amount of time, they're going to lose so many people who are just like, I can't deal with these guys who can't get it together. And a stat I saw, it was interesting. I forget where I saw it, but it was within the last day or so. The average viewership of Major League Baseball, NBA, and the NFL. NBA, youngest. NFL, slightly higher. I think the average age of the Major League Baseball viewer is over 50 years old.
It's been like that for a while. Been like that for a long time. Old people watch it. That's probably why we're talking about it on this show. Seriously, guys. Like, G-Rizen, I feel like you want to say something about
But they marketed the baseball different. When we were younger, what was the number one thing we always saw? Ozzie Smith making sweet plays in the hole. We don't see these shortstops in that anymore. We used to see This Week in Baseball, man, Ozzie Smith running out there making these crazy play after play, and you'd see Derek Jeter making all these great plays, Cal Ripken, all these middle infielders making these great plays, and they marketed that, and then once McGuire and Bonds and these guys, and they figured out they could juice the ball, they started marketing the home run and the offense and all this other stuff, and now we're into power pitchers, and now we're into the big home runs and the velocity off the bat, that's what everybody's into now. I mean, back then they played baseball. Like, if you were a baseball fan, everybody knows you hit behind the runner. Like, they're just the basic concepts of baseball aren't even talked about anymore. It's just get on base, let your big dude hit it over the fence, and move on. If not, you bring out your big pitcher if you're on defense and try to strike the guy out. I mean,
you still love it.
I still love it, yes, because I mean, baseball is a to me, it's the ultimate one-on-one sport, and I love it. I mean, it's fun to watch. Baseball's in such a good place. We've talked about it before with their athletes. Like, man, there are some fabulous young talented young baseball players that are coming up through the ranks. I mean, baseball is probably has the most stars, future stars coming up that are here. But I mean, the NBA is doing really well, but baseball, they don't even market their old their younger stars very well. I feel like NBA does a really good job. The NBA gets it. I think that's why they're in the spot they're in, but baseball's fucking clueless. Like, they don't market any of these guys very well. But yeah, we'll see. But baseball's changed. Like I said, man, we don't see these great shortstops anymore. Like, that we just don't see it because they move all these guys around. They're always in the exact same position. Ozzie Smith never moved around. What'd he move? 3 feet right, 3 feet left? I mean, that was it. And he made every damn play up the middle. And I mean, we saw the range. We don't see these dudes running 5 feet to their left anymore, standing up and zinging the dude out at first. We hardly see that anymore.
So I want to get into something else here before we continue down this baseball wormhole and nobody's left. So I bought the kids the holiday gifts here, whether it be Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa. Are there any other holidays anybody does around what do the pagans celebrate? Was that Halloween? JT, I feel like you would know pagan sacrifice rituals. When was that? When did that go down?
I don't know about pagans, but we just had Diwali.
The Indian holiday. Delicious. Love the Indian food. Delicious stuff. Just throwing that out there. So anyways, you guys have had the younger children. I'm in the stage where I have the younger children. My boy is turning 4 on as this drops on Wednesday. And then the daughter is 6. And I don't know how tough it was to find like the cool toy back in the day. But now that we have eBay, I could go and pay 3 times what a fucking toy is worth because I waited too long. It's a goddamn Magic Mixie. Have you ever heard of a Magic Mixie? Uncle T's laughing. Uncle T, do you know what a Magic Mixie is? Take a guess.
I have no idea.
G-Rizen, yes or no? Do you know?
I do not.
JT Hayes, I don't know what you're looking. Maybe you're looking up the Magic Mixie, but do you think you have any idea what a Magic Mixie could be?
I cannot say that I do.
Okay, it's a plastic cauldron, okay? And in this plastic cauldron, you put special powder and little chalk stars and magic potions. And then you put it in and mist starts coming out. And the kid has to say, Mixus, Magicus Mixus. And then smoke comes out and a little baby Magic Mixie pops out. As JT Hayes just...
Yeah, that sounds like a good time at the club.
And I'm really pissed off that I had to buy this fucking thing. It cost me $300 for 2 goddamn Magic Mixies. All right? This is unacceptable. I don't know what... did I do this to my parents? Like, if I don't get this, I don't know. Maybe they would have screamed at me. Maybe they would have stabbed me. Something awful would have happened. I just want to make my children happy. I take them to goddamn Legoland, and now I come back. I got to spend $300 on a fucking Magic Mixie? I've never even heard of this thing. They're magic wands and fucking mist and all this other stuff. You tell me, guys, when you had the little kids, was it this way? Because I'm overpaying. I'm stressed out. It's total bullshit.
Well, let's start though with the root cause, right? And I think the root cause here is your procrastination and laziness. And so if we take away the procrastination and laziness, okay, maybe the Magic Mixie is a very reasonable cost to spend on a Christmas gift to put that big smile on your daughter's face.
I must say this. I checked it a month ago. It was, instead of it being $130 and I had to buy 2 refills, it was still $100. So you're right. They mark it up. They double the price. These sons of bitches that go into these places, take all the merchandise and then sell it on the secondary market.
I mean, that is the beauty of capitalism. It's the sharp.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the shift. Sharp managers take advantage.
Yeah.
Dumb managers don't.
They did. I swung right into the shift.
Yeah.
Holden, I'll tell you one. You know what happened to me? You know, my daughter was into Hannah Montana back in them days. So when my daughter was younger, so Hannah Montana's coming into town for this big concert, and you know she's like 7, 8 years old, fired up, wants to go to Hannah Montana. So being a good dad, I had to go down to Joe Louis Arena downtown Detroit and wait outside at the box office to get freaking tickets. Now, mind you, it's freaking like in middle of December, cold as shit outside. I'm freezing my ass off for like 3 hours. It starts snowing, sleeting on me, and I'm waiting outside so my little girl can go to this stinking Hannah Montana concert. So I get the tickets after waiting hours, you know, go home. We Christmas time, wrap them all up. Yeah, the wife decides it was a good idea at the time that we were going to say it from Santa Claus. So that fat fool got all the credit for me waiting outside getting these tickets and freezing my ass off. This imaginary dude who she wouldn't even believe in 4 more years all of a sudden gets these credit for the Hannah Montana tickets. So yeah, she that was one I was like, the best gift I don't even get credit for. This
that sounds awful.
I was a little bummed by that one.
Uncle T, did you ever have to go to a New Kids on the Clock concert or buy him some crazy toy?
Yeah, I timed that beautifully. I had to walk away. That was 4.5 minutes of wow, not what I expected. So, what was the next topic, or did you ask me a question?
No, I mean this is unacceptable, Uncle T.
I'm in. This is going to come across the wrong way. You guys are going to get more ammo on Uncle T and shit. But no, I'm not into all the Hannah Montana bullshit. My daughter's 12. My 2 boys are older, as most of you guys know. I never got into the pumpkin pit or patches and the skating parties and the aquarium where you go and see the fish and all that. I never got into all that. Now, right away, you guys are going to say, oh, you're a bad dad, this and that. No, I never got into the pumpkin patch stuff and never got into the Hannah Montana tickets like G-Rizen said in like 10-degree weather. So, yeah, I'm not a good person to ask about that.
What'd you do with your kids,
I had my boys in the winter like working out, trying to in a batting cage in a basement somewhere, trying to work on their craft. That's, in all honesty, we did that quite a bit. Not to really get too far again out of whack, but you know, my boys growing up, they were all into baseball pretty heavy from 4 or 5 years old. We would be on the wintertime. We would just we would go into any kind of indoor facility we could, and we would hit 2, 3, 4 days a week. So I never really got into that side, and the boys never really got into it. So maybe I got lucky from that standpoint. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I can just say when I was a kid, I wanted baseball cards and Star Wars stuff, and that was it. Baseball cards, Star Wars.
I could see you being a Star Wars guy.
Love the Star Wars. Still got all my original toys from 1977.
So do I.
Not me.
You do too, G-Rizen?
Yeah, I got the trash compactor.
I got a little Ewok sitting in the other room.
All that shit still. I got them in the box still.
Oh, in the box? Why didn't you buy it in the box and not take it out if you're a kid?
Well, my grandmother was one to say that all those toys would be worth money someday when I get older, so put them back in the box and don't ruin them.
Yeah.
And you know what? She was right.
How's she doing?
Well, she's been in the ground for quite some time. She's a little cold, but she's doing great.
She's doing great still? That's good.
Yeah.
One last thing to bring up here. Did you know, what do you guys think of Business Insider? Does anyone have anything against Business Insider? Is that the place that did the hit job on Portnoy? I don't know, but they came out with a story today, and I just read this while Uncle T was talking. To keep myself interested.
Thanks for listening to what I was
no problem. And baseball used 2 different balls last year, and the balls were designed to perform differently. So this is interesting, especially for guys that play DFS and bet. There's a quote in there that says, give the juice balls to the good teams. If the Yankees are playing the Red Sox, throw it to them. And if the Rangers are playing the Mariners, throw them the ones that are not going to be able to be hit. I do wonder if all the shitty baseballs went to Texas last year, and that's why they really didn't have any scoring, or if it really was the offense in the ballpark. This is a serious problem, too. Fuck baseball for this also. Because we're betting totals last year, and they're using 2 fucking baseballs? What are they doing?
I got an alert every day on where they were at. I'm not sure if you did or not, but I knew where they were going.
What, the bad baseballs?
Yeah.
How?
I'm just messing with you.
He's
You're
Uncle
like,
T.
how?
He's got all the inside scoop.
No, I didn't know that. That's interesting, though.
It's not like that in football.
I don't believe one thing they say anyway. I wouldn't believe that bullshit for 1 minute.
Well, this is you don't believe anything that the media says about them, or you don't believe anything that baseball said?
I don't believe anything that the Business Insider necessarily would say. I would just skip right over that.
Let's play hypotheticals here, because in basketball, they don't have, all the balls are inflated to a specification. Same thing in football. We had Deflategate. I get it. Hockey, I don't know if the puck is weighed any differently, but this is for somebody that makes his money off of DFS and or betting, this is a major story, because you were betting on information you didn't have. You were under the assumption of one thing, that everything was an equal playing field, JT Hayes, and now it wasn't a level playing field.
Yeah, it's as big a story as the Lakers injury reporting, right? Because all these leagues now have these deals with sports books, with DraftKings and FanDuel, and the jury's still out on whether or not this stuff with the baseball. They clearly changed the way that the game was played in the middle of the season with the substance rules for pitchers. And that's something that was publicized. Wouldn't be totally surprising that they said, hey, wait a second, there's no runs being scored here. We got to do something. Let's go back to the balls from 2020 and not tell anyone. That wouldn't be surprising at all. I don't know. It's hard for me to believe that as an industry, they are rooting more for the success of the Red Sox and Yankees than the Rangers and the Mariners or the Indians, simply because if you only have the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Dodgers, then you have no game. And I would hope that the league office would be shrewd enough to understand that. But the bigger story here is these agreements that they have in place and the money that they're earning and the money that they're making now from legalized sports wagering is, at some point, there's going to be rubber has to meet the road here of, are they providing information real time that's honest, that's ethical, and that has integrity, or are they allowing pieces within the industry to dictate the outcome of games?
I just find it interesting. And if that's the case, what do you want to do with the StatCast data that everybody decides to drool over? Because there's no one uniform way to figure out how hard a ball is leaving a bat if you're using two different balls.
Yeah, I haven't seen the story. I'd be interested. If I were Major League Baseball, I would respond to that with statistics to disprove that there were significantly higher run totals in those games. I don't know that they're going to do that. Their response to these stories is usually to say, right, of course, that's not true, and then that's the end of it.
Here's the problem, JT, is you really can't figure out which ball was used in which game.
Well, if they're saying that
that was a quote from there. Like, hey, we would tell them, go send it to this game instead of this game because it's going to be more popular. Not to say that happened every single time, though. But if they're rolling out different baseballs again, if you make your money DFS and bets, this should be massive news to you because it changes a lot.
It should. Here's one other thing, though, and I think this is it's kind of a bigger picture thing, right? And maybe not everybody will understand this. The key for some of these sports leagues, the key with steroids in baseball was once you got Congress involved and Congress started asking questions, then everybody got worried because then you were going to face regulation, the loss of your antitrust exemption, all those things. Now that you have a Congress that basically can't do anything whatsoever, there's really no enforcement mechanism for any of these things in almost any industry. So it's more of a sort of a macro on where the U.S. is as a society right now. But you're right. If they're using two different baseballs and didn't inform the public, there wasn't some press release that said, hey, for whatever reason, we got the wrong balls and we're switching it as of this date. It's absolutely, it's a huge story. It's a huge story. It has so many implications.
Yeah, and I think more the players are going to be pissed, and then Us. And no one's going to give a shit about us. The players will be pissed, though. Anything else you guys need to get off your chest before we move on to the football portion of this show? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
What do you guys think about these college coaches just up and bailing, like Brian Kelly bailing on Notre Dame in the middle of the night when they actually have a chance to be in a college football playoff? I mean, I don't mind Lincoln Riley taking off and going to USC because, I mean, damn, he's going to be the king of the West Coast. But, I mean, I think, I hear all these kids whining and crying, and I think it's just a cruel reality that they got to realize that that's big business. And Brian Kelly got pretty much a triple pay raise. So, I mean, I don't fault the guy. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that these guys, finish it out? Or, it's these schools want to get, fill in their spots. I mean, Brian Kelly, now what? Urban Meyer going to go to Notre Dame? I think there's all kinds of moving pieces here.
Yeah, I think that – go ahead, JT.
No, let me ask you why you don't have a problem with what Lincoln Riley did, but you're upset by what Brian Kelly did.
No, I'm not upset with they're both in the same spot. I think with me, though, Lincoln Riley, he got so much more money. He just got so much money to go to USC, and I think it's a different path. Leaving Notre Dame and then going to the SEC, I think you do have an easier chance to get to the national title game in the SEC, just because if you win that division, you're going to the college playoff. If you're Notre Dame, you pretty much cannot lose a game to get there. So, but Lincoln Riley, he's going to have what does he got to do? Compete with Oregon, maybe? I think he has a much easier path to be the king. Like, I think he has for him being there in Oklahoma, I think USC is a huge destination job. But Brian Kelly was already in a decent job. He was already in one of them top 10 jobs. And then for him to go to US or LSU, I think it's kind of a different thing. But Lincoln Riley, man, they backed up the Brinks truck to that dude's house. They paid him $500,000 bonus on every house. They gave him use to a private jet, and they're paying him like $10 million a year. It's good for him.
Yeah, I think if you look at Brian Kelly, you make the point about how difficult it is to get into the playoff, not being in a conference, and he's also going to have some significant recruiting advantages in terms of recruiting for a state school as opposed to the requirements to get into Notre Dame. So, but thoughts on these coaches leaving, especially the way Kelly did. I don't know that he could do anything differently. He's changing jobs. He's not going to tell people in the days leading up to that, hey, I'm interviewing here. If it works out, I won't be around. It just shows you, I think even more so, why the NCAA was, decades late in letting these kids, make some money off of what they're doing, being that this is so much of an avalanche windfall for these coaches that have a record of success. So just feel bad for the kids involved, but you know what? They can make money on their likenesses. They can get meal money now. So, at least things are improving.
Okay. Very good.
I think for me, I agree with you guys to a point, but I think for me, I think the timing of everything, and I know everything's always fluid, especially with college football. Once these teams are out of it or one ball starts to drop, right? Or one piece goes, and then it starts that domino effect. I get it. I understand it. It is big business. The timing of it is definitely interesting this year with the pieces that are involved, though, right? Because, again, Kelly, while Notre Dame isn't right in the mix, they're still at least on the, depending on what happens in a couple of these games this week, if they fall the right way, maybe Notre Dame does get a slot. I don't think they will, but there could be a scenario where UC loses and, Michigan maybe gets knocked, where they could slide up. Obviously, here in Cincinnati locally yesterday and today, all the talk was, now that Kelly is off to LSU, Luke Fickell could go to Notre Dame. That's all. That's been the talk here in the local media all day today. Fickell has to come out and make a comment, obviously, because it's getting talked about. I think it puts him in a tough situation because he's obviously we'll see here in a couple hours, they should be supplanted in that 4 spot, maybe 3rd, I don't know. And it puts him in a tough spot, right? Because he can't clearly say anything, even if he had any interest in the Notre Dame job, which I don't know if he does or he doesn't, but it puts him in a spot where there's no way he could say anything right now. He's never going to leave, and have them have a spot in the playoff. There's no way. So, and then JT, real quick on the Brian Kelly, I do agree with you. However, I was on board. And then earlier today, I saw a report, and it was actually a taped interview he did about 2 weeks ago when he was basically given a blanket question, if you will, that said, could you see any scenario where you would leave Notre Dame on your own, so to speak, and not get fired, basically is what they're saying. And he said, and again, I know everything's fluid, things change, but when he comes out and says, I can't see a scenario where I would leave on my own, and then he paused and he said, unless someone were to throw $250 million at me, I would have to have my wife think about it. So I get it. I get it. I'm not against that. I'm just saying, just come out and say something totally different. It just feels a little, I don't know. It feels a little.
Notre Dame offers Luke Fickell that job, he's gone. I don't care if they're in the playoff or not.
No, Brian Kelly's just a piece of shit is what it is. I mean, and then the report, he talked to his guys for 2 minutes, didn't take any questions, walked out of the room. That's typical. Brian Kelly's a piece of shit to deal with as a person. He is too. Let's not forget that a decade ago, guy has 50-mile-an-hour winds outside, 50-mile-an-hour winds, just so his team could be tougher. He has practices in the winds, and the kid that he has videotaping his practice gets killed because he got blown over, and the whole tower got blown over by 50-mile-an-hour winds. There's also a guy that had 2 years of his records vacated, including the year that they went to the national championship game and lost because of academic fraud. Brian Kelly's a piece of garbage. A lot of these guys are. A lot of these guys are the most powerful people in their state, not their city, in their state. Joe Paterno was the most powerful person in the state of Pennsylvania. Look at the shit that happened under him, and that was it. He went home, he had a thing, then he died. Good for him. These guys are all above the law, and they can do whatever they want to do, and there's no blowback unless their team isn't good, and then they get fired. That's literally the only thing that gets these guys out of their jobs. They don't give a shit about their players. A lot of them don't really give a shit about the players. They say it. They're in it to make the money. They're in it for the hubris, and that's just the way it goes.
I'm on Holden's side here a little bit, but G-Rizen, the scenario I think of why Fickell won't. One, I think he may be holding out for the other dream job of his to open possibly in the off season if Ryan Day goes to the NFL. I think he could be interested in the Ohio State job a little bit more than the Notre Dame job. I could clearly be completely wrong, but I think he will stay where he's at right now. And again, maybe in a couple of weeks, we come on this show and you say, hey, Uncle T was completely wrong, but I don't think he's going to go.
Ryan Day is interesting. I was telling my buddy, if Ryan Day loses to Michigan next year 2 or 3 times in a row, they're going to run his ass right out of Columbus.
So go now?
Yeah, I mean, but they will. But, like Harbaugh said, guy standing on third thinking he hit a triple. I mean, the guy literally was handed one of the best college programs in the country.
Okay, boys, let's move on to the football portion of the show. Whoever raises their hand first gets the breakdown. Now, I think there's going to be an ego contest here. You guys are not going to want to raise your hand.
Before we get in, it's a football topic, though. Can I bring it up?
Fine, Uncle T. Let's hear it.
It won't take long. We won't use long.
I don't care if it does.
And this is going to sound like, and I messaged G-Rizen on the side, so it's not like I'm surprising him with this, but he has to be at least a little bit concerned about the Rams Super Bowl ticket at the moment. They've lost 3 in a row. I still like the Rams a little bit. I still think they've got a chance. But boy, they've looked awful the last 3 weeks. And I know a couple weeks ago, G-Rizen along with us, I know I did as well. We thought they were literally in a prime spot. G-Rizen was excited about his 9-1 ticket, and I don't blame him. But boy, in 3 weeks, Robert Woods gets hurt. They add Von Miller, they add OBJ, and all of a sudden they can't win. Now, this week they do get Jacksonville, so clearly we think things will get back on the right track. But I do think it's interesting how, things have kind of gone south for them the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'm not really concerned about it. I mean, the NFL has been so freaky this year. I mean, it's up and down. I pretty much feel pretty good. If they were not in the playoffs and they were fighting to get in the playoffs, I think I'd be somewhat concerned. But, I mean, they're going to get into the party at the end of the year. Anything can happen at that point. I mean, I think they're in still a good spot. I'm not really concerned. I mean, I got a ticket, 500 to win 5,000, 9-1. If I was to tell somebody I'd sell it to for $1,000, I'm pretty sure I could probably find a taker, but not necessarily I'd want to do that. I'd just rather ride it out. But I mean, yeah, I'm happy about it at this point. I'm not concerned. Matter of fact, if I see it get up any higher anywhere else, I may take it. But, you know, you guys talk about these future bets. I think an interesting one that maybe we could bring up real quick, talking about football, is the Heisman Trophy. I mean, the Heisman Trophy is wide open.
Hold on. Why would anyone buy your ticket if the odds are that much better now? Like, what? They'd be like, all right, I'll just take the $500 and put the bet down on the better odds.
I mean, you could get 5-1 on them on my ticket, and now I don't know what their odds are at 5-1. But
okay. You could find someone on eBay who hasn't bought their child a
Magic Mixie. Yeah.
Yeah, you could come free with your purchase, you know, something like that.
Yeah. Oh, Jebediah Timothy, that was a wonderful one. All right, keep going on there, G-Rizen.
No, but I was just thinking with that Heisman Trophy, I mean, there's really no front runner right now, and I think you may see, you know, a guy like Hutchinson on Michigan is in the hunt here. You got the guy on the defensive player or the tackle, I think, for Georgia. He's another one. So, I mean, there's some guys here that are off the wall that you might be able to get at some pretty high odds if you look on these sports books for some of these Heismans. I think that's pretty interesting, actually.
G-Rizen, if you'll notice, Uncle T was checking his phone while you were talking.
My phone is blowing up while I was on
JT Hayes was on the phone while you were talking. I just want you to know I was the only one listening to what you had to say, and I thought it was great stuff.
They were on Pornhub.
I wasn't on the phone. I was listening. And outside of the Georgia Bulldogs, who are ranked number 1, I don't really follow college football all that much. So
you checked out. Yeah, so you checked out.
No. Listen, I'm happy for G-Rizen. I hope Michigan gets in. But imagine Michigan beating an SEC team. I mean, that's kind of
I don't think that's quite – we're not there yet. But just to get there is good enough.
Uncle T, who's blowing your phone up, buddy?
No, I just keep giving you guys ammo to give me shit all the time, but you're going to love us more than anybody because you give me shit about it more than anything. Is I've got Friday night starts my radio schedule. I've got 7 games in 10 days, and I'm getting crushed by text and messages of when we're going on the radio. So, yeah. So let's get into the football talk.
How many people think Uncle T? How many people think Uncle T has that one leg? You know, from the Christmas.
I got a leg. I got a leg, G-Rizen. It's
you got a leg lamp, don't you?
About that leg.
You got a leg lamp, don't you? One of them leg lamps.
Yeah. We got to go to the football talk.
All right, boys. Let's talk about quarterbacks. We got 11 game slate. So nice big slate coming up this weekend. Maybe Kyler Murray's back. If he does, that means he's going to be like 90, 100%. And I'm always interested in that version of Kyler Murray, but we got to find out if he's playing or not first. Lamar's got Pittsburgh. G-Rizen's Matt Stafford against Jacksonville at home. Jacksonville better against the run, but not good against the pass. You got Kirk Cousins at Detroit. I think that's a 1:00 window game, which is very nice. You like to see that with him. Carson Wentz at Houston. There's some pretty good matchups this week, guys, head-to-head. G-Rizen, I'll start with you. Give me 1 or 2 names at the quarterback position you're looking at first glance.
I mean, is this a get-right spot for Tom Brady against Atlanta, who's awful? It's going to be indoors, so we're not going to have to worry about weather. I think that's an interesting one. And as we mentioned, is it a good get-right spot for Matt Stafford against Jacksonville? I think that's another one that's interesting. And, you know, Carson Wentz and the Colts are going to be facing a pretty shitty Houston team. And then, like you mentioned, Kyler Murray's going to be back at Chicago. But with that being outside, I'm not really sure. But Cousins is going to get the Lions. I mean, are we going to see a passing type attack? Obviously, we're going to have Cook be out. But I know they do like Madison. But, yeah, there's a few right. There's a few quarterbacks in some pretty good spots. But you guys been noticing at the top of these tournaments, it's been the cheap oddball guy, the Tyrod Taylors, all these cheap
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, these are the guys that are winning these tournaments. So I do spend time looking back. And, man, last week was Tyrod Taylor was on some of the teams.
Yeah, my best team did have a really shitty quarterback on it. I don't remember who he was, but it was really bad. It might have been Tyrod Taylor, actually, come to think of it. I mean, he cost nothing. He was like 5-something. and it just allowed me to get everybody else that I wanted. Uncle T, let's talk to you, a quarterback here, my man. Who are you looking at? Who's the number 1 and 2 guys in your eyes?
Yeah, my best team on Sunday had a shitty quarterback. You know who his name was? Tom Brady. Because freaking Lenny Fournette vultured a 40-plus burger on DK, and I had Brady sitting there with a Brady stack on my best team, and I had to sit there and watch Lenny just scoop up every touchdown. It was very hurtful, JT. But that being said, I don't hold grudges, Holden. That's not what I do. I'm coming right back with TB this week. I love Tom Brady in this matchup. In Atlanta against the Falcons. You know, he usually does pretty well against the Falcons. Here you go indoors. I love him, and I love pairing him with Mike Evans this week on that side. Obviously, you can't go wrong with Godwin either. Gronk's been playing really well the last couple weeks, getting a ton of targets. Like Mike Evans, though, he had 9 catches for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns in the earlier matchup. So I like that combo. G-Rizen mentioned Carson Wentz. I really like him this week. In Houston, he had a really good, about 2.5 quarters in that Tampa Bay game. And then all of a sudden, things kind of went south for both Wentz and the Colts in that game. But I don't mind coming back with him in that matchup in Houston. I don't mind Derek Carr a little bit. You know, I kind of like what I saw on Thanksgiving when they went into Dallas and knocked off the Cowboys. And, you know, he's not going to be a flashy play, but you guys are just talking about guys that, you know, maybe lesser, you know, I wouldn't say lesser known, but lesser quarterbacks, if you will, that have been putting up some nice numbers. I could see Derek Carr doing pretty well at 6K. And the other guy I got is Jimmy Garoppolo in that matchup against Seattle. I think Seattle, after seeing what I saw last night, they're just completely, as we like to say, dust. I mean, if somebody knows where DK Metcalf is, just make sure they let him know where he's at. See, I mean, he's just been a complete disaster.
Russ sucks too. Wilson. Honestly, I mean, we want to blame Pete Carroll for everything, and that marriage is over. One of those 2 guys is on. Russ has been extraordinarily inaccurate. And I don't know, it was before the surgery. He has just not been the same guy that we're accustomed to seeing. JT Hayes, thoughts on quarterback this week?
Interesting pricing. I mean, you talk about Seattle, though. My God, I mean, imagine building a game around Alex Collins and DJ Dallas when you have Russ and DK, Tyler Lockett, even Everett. I mean, come on. But, Brady gets the Falcons here in Atlanta. And talk about a problem for the NFL, right? I have Falcons season tickets, and I just have no desire to go to this game. Like, there's no desire to go to downtown Atlanta when I could go to my favorite sports bar here and watch all the games. But anyway, a couple of quarterbacks you guys didn't talk about. Justin Herbert at 6'7", a matchup in Cincinnati. And then on the other side of that game, Joe Burrow, 6'3" on DraftKings. And then, you know, paying down, kind of like the quarterback on the other side of the Vegas game, Tyler Heineke, 5'6". He has some rushing upside. Team has been playing much better. Antonio Gibson looks fully healthy now. So pretty good attack there against a Raiders team that isn't really concerning defensively. And then, I mean, Jalen Hurts looked bad, sure, against the Giants, but now he gets the Jets. And he's 7K. So I think that's a pretty good matchup for him at a decent price point. And then you guys mentioned Stafford. Stafford seems to put up his best games in these games where they're playing, you know, teams that can't compete with them whatsoever. They just keep the foot on the pedal and run them into the ground, but they do it, a lot of it through the air. So 7-3, not the best price, but he easily could put up 30 points on Sunday.
Hey, guys, on to running back. I'm just going to continue to make the sales pitch for Eli Mitchell. Just play him every week because he's going to get a ton of work. And if he falls in the box even once, he's going to pay off. Last week, monster game, 27.8 DK points. Doesn't get a lot of work in the passing game. Might get you, well, actually, last week he got a ton of work in the passing game. I take that back. He does get a lot of work in the passing game. You pair him with Jonathan Taylor at the top at 9.2K on DK, and that's your running back pairing, and it's as simple as that, Uncle T. Just go with that. Just go Jonathan Taylor, Eli Mitchell, and move on.
Yeah, I'm on board with one of them. I do like Jonathan Taylor, but at 9.2K, I'll probably, at least right now, again, it's like we always say, it's Tuesday, but I do love the Mitchell call for sure. What do you get, like 30 touches or something like that? Or
Yeah,
it's pretty close to that.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely like him. And he's at a very affordable price too. I mean, 6K, it feels like he's really cheap, especially considering the matchup and how good he has performed. A couple guys that I do like. JT mentioned that game here in Cincinnati. It is. I do have to kind of keep an eye on the weather. It looks like it could have a lot of rain impacting that game on Sunday unless things change here in Cincinnati. I do like Joe Mixon. You talk about a guy that's just been on complete fire the last 4 or 5 weeks, and here he draws at least the dream matchup, right, against the Chargers team that can't stop the run. Now he does have the elevated price tag at 8,100. He hasn't, been up in that range at all, so you are getting a little bit of a price jump from Joe Mixon. DeAndre Swift, 6.6K in a matchup against Minnesota. I know he underperformed on Thanksgiving in that game against the Bears, but I do like him. Myles Gaskin is interesting, 5.8K in a matchup against the Giants. Gaskin never looks flashy, but it always feels like he lands in the end zone a couple times to get there. My boy Cordero Patterson, 2 more touchdowns last week, 7K. His price is, again, kind of creeping up there. And then I'll leave a couple for G-Rizen, but those are some of the ones I really like. Swift, Mixon, Mitchell that we mentioned, like all those guys.
Hey, G-Rizen, they priced up Alexander Madison, and I'm probably still going to roll with him. He's going up against the Lions. He's 7-6 on DraftKings, 8-7 on FanDuel. We talk about running backs don't matter. This guy does everything Dalvin Cook can do. I mean, it's just that's it. When he's in there, he produces. So I'm actually going to throw somebody else into the mix with Eli Mitchell and Jonathan Taylor. And I love the Mixon call. I think Mixon should be very highly owned this week. He's been absolutely amazing. But G-Rizen, Alexander Madison, you want any?
Yeah, I don't mind Madison at all. I mean, damn, on FanDuel, he's like in the top 5. I just
He should be.
Glance. He's like 4th or 5th in price. Yeah, you're right. He should be, but they do have it right. But I will agree with Uncle T. Joe Mixon's my favorite this week, 9,400. He is on FanDuel. You get $1,100 savings from Jonathan Taylor. I really like that spot. They're just really leaning on Mixon here. But Uncle T brought up Swift. He hurt his shoulder. He may not be in there. So if that's not the case, Jamal Williams is interesting. I think he's going to be a guy that could be relevant this week. And then 2, just kind of looking, I really like Eli Mitchell, like you guys mentioned. I think that is somebody you definitely got to pay attention to. But, man, is it me or do you guys just feel like Barkley's ready to break out? Like, I feel like he kind of just started out a little bit. I think Barkley is an interesting guy that's kind of a, off the radar guy. Definitely know he's got upside. I know he was hurt there, but, I mean, I don't like that whole Giants offense as per se, but, I mean, I don't – Barkley's starting to get down there in price, 7,200 on FanDuel, where you almost got to start kind of considering him just because of the upside. But, I mean, here we got Fournette against a shitty Atlanta team. You guys mentioned Tom Brady already. But, damn, 7,700, is he going to do this shit again to us and vulture all those touchdowns? Because they're going to score 5 or 6 – probably 5 touchdowns against Atlanta. So, man, if Fournette does that to us again – that's gonna bite us in the ass. And then James Conner against the Bears this week, I think could be interesting as well because the Bears stink. I just think the Bears stink. That's going to be outside. I don't think they're going to want Kyler Murray running around as much. So I have a feeling that they're going to hand the ball off and kind of play that one safe in that game.
Okay. JT Hayes, why don't you finish up here at running back, and then I'll get back to you for wide receiver number 1. But what do you got here at running back this week? Anybody else we missed?
No, I mentioned Antonio Gibson at 5.7 against the Raiders. I think that's a pretty good matchup, the way they're using him. And Eli Mitchell, this is why I'm not on Garoppolo and made a mistake not coming off of Garoppolo last week once Eli Mitchell was ruled in because San Francisco's first preference is to use him as much as they can. Now Deebo Samuel is out. He's going to miss. It just makes Eli Mitchell, I think, all that much safer here. So he'd probably be points per dollar my number 1 ranked guy on the week.
Sucks. That sucks. Love him. Love him at low ownership. I love him at higher ownership too. Let's go to wide receiver though. And again, probably if you haven't been playing Waddle, I don't know what you're waiting for. All he does is just get tons of volume every single week. Tua has been, I think he's thrown at an 80% completion rate over the last few weeks. He's right up there in QBR too. Over the last month since he came back, he has been stellar. And you got Jalen Waddle, who has explosive capabilities. He's got 19 targets and 17 catches in the last 2 weeks. This is obviously the guy Tua's locking in on, JT Hayes. He's 6'4" on DK, 6'9" on FanDuel. And I just don't understand why they didn't bump his price up, because this is probably a mid 7K wide receiver, and he's going to be there sooner than later. I mean, if you gave me Keenan Allen and Jalen Waddle head to head, I would go Jalen Waddle right now. And Keenan Allen is 7.5 on DK.
Yeah, I mean, Waddle, obviously, what an incredible game. I think 31 DK points.
2 in a row.
Last week. Yeah. Two. Well, the one before that wasn't like this one, right? I mean, he's had a bunch of very good games, but I definitely think he's on the radar. So, looking down here, Michael Pittman is 5.7K in that matchup. I know he disappointed a lot of people on Sunday, but I like him. I like Brandon Ayuk at 5.6 with Debo out. He probably will get even a few more looks. Weather notwithstanding, Jamar Chase down at 7K. I think he's finally approaching that right price point for him where he can get to, if he gets to his ceiling, it'll be a nice day. And then, Terry McLaurin, 7.4 in that same matchup in Vegas. And yeah, you mentioned Keenan Allen, 7.5. 7.5, maybe a little too high for him just because the touchdown upside doesn't seem to be there this year. You want to spend up. I got two guys. I mean, the two guys are the highest priced guys, but Justin Jefferson, outstanding matchup, 8.2. And then, of course, it goes without saying that Cooper Kupp at 9.0 has a great matchup. Don't know if you need both of those guys. I might lean Jefferson here.
Okay. Uncle T, you want to take some wide receiver here? And I just want to throw a guy out at you. Is Jamar Chase at this point, like, what's going on here? He hasn't really paid off in about 5 weeks. So he hasn't, Holden. You're right. I think early in the year when even like 4 or 5 weeks ago when he had those back-to-back good games, the 31-point game, I think it was, obviously his pay or his salary started to go up as his salary seemed to start going up and he started to become more, popular of a target and play. It's been more T. Higgins that's been getting a lot of the, the attention from Joe Burrow. So I'm probably going to be off Chase this week, and I might be out a little bit more on the passing game this week than I normally would, even though that is a tasty matchup. I wouldn't argue any receiving calls or even Herbert or Burrow in that game, but the total sits at 50.5. It could go to 51, may come down, who knows, but I'll probably be off that game just a little bit. It is good for fantasy, right? We got plenty options on both sides. But I love the Justin Jefferson call by JT, also the Ayuk call from him. And then earlier in the show, I mentioned Mike Evans. Him and Godwin both are obviously really good plays this week going up against that Atlanta team. A couple guys he didn't mention that I like. Michael Pittman, 5.7K. Underwhelmed a little bit last week in that game when we were kind of on him, at least I was. 5.7K in Houston. I feel like that's a good, easy pairing again with Carson Wentz if you want to go there. Deontay Johnson, 6.8K against Baltimore. I really like this play by Johnson. Again, I know the Steelers were awful against my Bengals. They just completely dominated that game. But if you look at the targets that Deontay still seems to get from Dusty Ass, as Big T would call him, Big Fat Ben, 14, 13, 13, 6, 13. Like, he's still getting targets. So, and that's not even getting into the end zone but once in the last several games. So I think in a matchup against Baltimore, those games sometimes can typically shoot out a little bit. So I don't necessarily mind that. And then Hunter Renfrow, 5.8K. We make fun of him quite a bit, at least Big T does. But, a decent matchup against Washington in the football team there.
And then the Jalen Waddle call, I do like it again, Holden. He is creeping up there again. He's at his highest price tag, 6,400. He had his first 100-yard game last week. As good as he's been, he finally got over the century mark as far as yards in the game. And again, he's Tua's number one guy, so I don't mind that call at all. I was ashamed I did not listen to you on the Wood Show Sunday morning, and I did not get on Waddle, and I'm very upset with myself.
Did you get on Elijah Mitchell?
Yes, I did get on Mitchell. Yep.
G-Rizen, would you like to talk about wide receiver real quick?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with what a lot of you guys were saying. I just think, Waddle's a guy who's really interesting. OBJ, too. I think the Rams are in a spot they're going to be where they're going to get right. I think they need OBJ moving forward. They know that. So I think they got to establish who that number 2 receiver is. So I think between OBJ and Van Jefferson, that's going to be up for grabs here in these next few weeks. So I think that's one here. They're going to be looking for somebody to replace Woods, obviously. But, I like everything you guys were saying. I think Mooney's another interesting one, too, because, man, Dalton just seems to lock in on Mooney. He likes his Mooney boy. So
I think Fields is back, isn't he?
I'm not sure if he is or back, if they said it or not. But if he's not, Dalton definitely, that seems to be his favorite for sure. And if they're losing to Arizona, I mean, he's obviously going to have to throw. So I don't mind that. But, yeah, wide receivers, definitely wide open. Terry McLaurin's another guy against Vegas. I think there could be some points scored there. So, yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying, especially Deontay Johnson, Big T, or Uncle T. I like that one, too.
Oh, God. He's got 40 targets in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's all they do is throw it to him.
Yeah, 13, 14 targets. He's their running back. I mean, he is their running back. Tight end, G-Rizen, let's just stay with you here. I want to get do we go back to Gronkowski? He's 5. Let's see. You play FanDuel more, but he's 5'3" on DK. He's 7K on FanDuel. Dallas Goedert basically took a goose egg last week. He was in a great spot, but I wouldn't mind going to him against the Jets. Logan Thomas was involved. Yep. He's got Vegas coming up. Thomas had
my favorite.
6 targets coming off IR. So give me 1 or 2 names at tight end.
Yeah, I mean, Logan Thomas, like you mentioned, he looked really good last night. They were getting him involved. I think they're going to probably drum him up a few more plays. He's only 5,600. I mean, I'd rather have him at a 1,700 savings than a guy like Mark Andrews. But Gronk, to me, yeah, I mean, Tom's just looking at Gronk. The only problem is if they get out in front, Gronk's not going to have that many opportunities. So you might not get too much of Gronk. Freiermuth, another one on Pittsburgh. If he's not throwing it to Johnson, he's throwing it to Freiermuth. But I think he has a concussion issue. So he may not be in there, but I do like the Dallas Goedert call. But Logan Thomas, for me, is the guy who stands out, and especially for that price tag. I definitely like some Logan Thomas.
Uncle T, tight end?
Yeah, if I'm paying up, which I think right now I'm kind of liking some guys in the mid-range more than up top. But if I'm paying up, I'll probably go back to Kittle. Kittle did disappoint me last week. I did have him in my best stack of the day on Sunday, and he only got 2 targets. It was really disappointing because obviously Mitchell had the 78 touches or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. I think he just got another touch while we were talking. But yeah, so I don't mind if I'm paying up to go to Kittle. But some guys in the mid range, I like their Gronk call at 5.3K. But I do agree with G-Rizen. I think if that game kind of gets out of hand early and they get up, I think it would limit his touches, and obviously they could, maybe limit him as far as his plays and just kind of give him a little bit of a break. I love the Freiermuth call. Evan Ingram and Dan Arnold are a couple guys in the mid to upper 3K range that I don't mind taking a shot at. But my favorite guy is probably Dallas Goedert, 4.5K going up against the Jets. He's been underwhelming a little bit the last couple of weeks, but I think this week with the matchup against the Jets, I think him and Hurts get it together, and he's probably my favorite play at this point.
What do you got here, JT Hayes?
Yeah, with Deebo Samuel out, I think Kittle will finally get some targets, but paying up hasn't really been working out so much at tight end.
Who's that?
Tyler Higbee is 3.8 now, and that matchup, I think there's a bunch of guys that are going to see ceilings on the Rams side there. And then Tyler Conklin, 3.7 as well for Minnesota against a team that, we're not all that worried about, especially against tight ends. And those are the 2 guys that I'll mention that they didn't.
I got one more I forgot. What about Jack O'Shaughnessy? That's going to
be just going to say that.
Arnold.
Yeah, I just saw that.
I mean, he's 4,500 on FanDuel. So, I mean, if you can squeeze a touchdown and, something a little bit out of him at 4,500 might open up some things. So I think that's something we got to kind of pay attention to.
Yeah, that's a good call, G-Rizen. I didn't see they placed him on IR, so I do like that. On DK, he's 2.5K, so I do like that call.
The Jaguars just have been so completely inept.
Yeah, Uncle Urban.
Yeah, he should take a college job again. He's missing out on all these jobs here.
Maybe he can go.
I mean,
to
look
Notre
at all the
Dame.
girls he's got at college towns. I mean, why not?
No, it's a fine point you make. It really is. There's a lot of reasons to like a college job. You're the boss. There's another guy who was a total dick. If you didn't write nice stories about him, you couldn't go to practice. You know, it's just these college coaches, they're amazing, man. They really are amazing people. Okay, RPS Heater 25% off your first payment of a monthly installment. You get all our great work, core plays, playbook, cash chart, just everything. And it's for all the sports going on right now. For JT Hayes, Uncle T, and G-Rizen, I'm Holden. Simon, get us out of here.